Cool. All right, and we might get more people in later. We'll see. But yeah, so welcome to the introduction to GenAI session for this quarter. This is going to happen again tomorrow. So if you really want to hear the same content a second time, you can come on back and listen to me and engage with me again. But we call this presentation, What is GenAI and Can It Be Used Ethically? And we'll go into what ethically means in a minute. All of the images in this presentation, including this one, were generated by a GenAI tool called Nano Banana, which is the image generator in Google Gemini. Okay, so if they look weird, or maybe they don't, depending on who you are, now you know. Everybody good to go? Headline, cool. So here's our agenda today. We will be doing, got some folks coming in online. We will be going through the learning outcomes. We will do an introduction activity. We will cover GenAI basics. We'll talk about ethics. We will then do a second activity. It's very mysterious. And then we'll talk about AI in the workforce. And stick around for that because that may be the most relevant part of this entire presentation for all of you who are here at SEC. Keyboard is not working. So, learning outcomes. First outcome is to understand definitions and basic knowledge of generative artificial intelligence or GenAI technology. Next, highlight basic tools, functionality, and trends. Next, explore higher ed and professional contexts. This is all for GenAI, of course. And then identify potential problems and benefits of the technology and ethical considerations. And finally, ponder recommended practices for using GenAI at the college. Any questions on any of these? So this is what we hope you'll get out of this presentation. And then you can take it back to your contexts, where your life exists and what you do in your life, and hopefully it will help you go forward. So let's start with this first activity. Folks online, 1 second. We're just going to get folks in the classroom the opportunity to scan this QR code. Actually, folks, if you're online and you want to scan this QR code, if you're in front of a laptop or a computer monitor, you can do that. But we'll put a code and a URL in the chat in a moment. Everybody in the room able to scan it? Good. Yes. So we'll get to the questions here in a second. And cool. So here is our mystery activity. This introduction activity is just to gauge get a sense, gauge the room and see how you all feel about GenAI or where you're at. Folks online, I'd love for you to participate as well. ahaslides.com/xjz2m. That's the URL, or you can scan that QR code again. And feel free to start with the first question. What are some popular GenAI tools we're seeing these days? What have you heard of? Folks, if you have never heard of GenAI before, you do not need to try to guess. Really just seeing who's heard of what at this point. I see 4 people are successfully in the room. That's fantastic. And I see at least 1 person is typing now. So we'll give it about a minute to see the tools that you've heard of. Yeah, you can enter that if that's what you're familiar with. Yep. Question in the room, tools like Google? Yes. Okay, we have some coming in now. Wow, all right. I love this word cloud because I have to like stretch my neck as I look at the individual answers. So I see ChatGPT, Copilot, Perplexity, Claude, Gemini, Nano Banana, good morning, DALL-E, Canva AI, Google, did I say Copilot already? Copilot, another spelling of Gemini. Gemini, Gemini is the correct spelling on that one. Cool. And I don't see anyone else talking, so we'll move to the next question. Great job, everybody. Those are fantastic examples. Next. How have you or someone you know used Gen AI tools in the recent past? Good or bad examples are okay. And this is a judgment-free zone. If you knew all of the things that I did with Gen AI, you very well might say they're bad or good. I try everything. That sound was. Oh, must have been from it. Okay, I see one person has entered in resume refinement, proofreading. Okay, that seems good. See other people typing. Also, the colors of the boxes have nothing to do with whether they're good or bad or in between. Suggesting recipes for ingredients in my fridge. Interesting. To help determine a medical event. Okay, that is fascinating too. I'm going to give just another minute for folks to participate. You're welcome to scan and join in. I think we have one more question after this one. Okay, to make funny pics, to check code, to help write a resume, check math problems, and suggest what I go to college for. All right. And used to look up symptoms of farm animals showing signs of distress or injury. Wow, that's a new one for me. That's amazing. And analyze, compile data. Okay, people have stopped typing, so we're going to move to the next question. But before we do, does anyone have any thoughts on any of these? Initial thoughts, reactions to any of them?
I like the detailed one about animals. That was pretty good.
Okay. In the room, I like the detailed one about animals. Yeah. Anybody online, feel free to use the chat. Feel free to unmute as you want. We've got 4 people online. Okay, no unmuting and no chat. So we'll go to the next question. To a big screen. Okay, so ethics. Without even knowing what ethics are, because we haven't talked about ethics yet, how strong is your ethical code when it comes to AI? On the left, or the one is unformed, or you don't even know. You never even thought about it. Maybe you've thought about it a little bit and you land somewhere in between, or you think about it all the time and you're going to be on the right, which is level 5. Welcome in. Seems like most folks, yeah, 3.7 is the average here. And unfortunately, this one, you can't see if people are still writing. So I'm just going to go ahead and say we've landed around 4, which is pretty good. I mean, people seem to be thinking about this stuff. So thank you. This first activity is done. You're welcome to set your phones or devices aside for the moment. We'll go back to the slides. So we're going to talk about definitions of artificial intelligence. Before I share an example, what is artificial intelligence in your words? How do you define it? Does anyone want to? Okay.
Basically a dictionary that can talk back to you or an encyclopedia that can talk back to you.
Okay, it seems like you're describing generative artificial intelligence, which is good. Yeah, so LLM, large language model, use your words, a large dictionary that can talk back to you. Yes, in the back.
Oh. Created outcomes or expected outcomes based on probability, and the idea that the whole idea of reaching a general intelligence greater than humans, I would say.
Greater than humans.
Yeah.
Okay. Folks online, are you able to hear? I just want to gauge how good the microphone is in the room. I know you can hear me because I'm standing right next to it, but I want to know if I need to repeat the other students. Can anyone chime in? I see some
Can hear it.
typing. All right, awesome. Could not hear the last student. Okay, so the last student was describing a neural network and technology that connects to general intelligence. That's a very brief version of what you said, but thank you. And yes, here. A people replacer. Do you want to describe that or? Interesting.
For taking your animal to the vet. You use the vet and all the people at the vet's office. Then you just go in with artificial intelligence and asking them, well, what can I do so I can treat it myself, eliminating the person, doing
Okay.
your self-checkout.
So in a functional sense, it may be replacing some roles, taking over some tasks,
Like
automation, like the robot in the picture. Well, yeah, I intentionally plugged that image in there. So, all right, I don't see anything online or anyone raising their hand online. So we will go into a definition here about AI in general. So I do appreciate the description of GenAI, but let's talk about AI first, the broader concept that GenAI is part of. So artificial intelligence is technology that enables computers and machines to simulate human learning, comprehension, problem solving, decision-making, creativity, and autonomy. Applications and devices equipped with AI can see and identify objects. They can understand and respond to human language. They can learn from new information and experience. They can make detailed recommendations to users and experts. They can act independently, replacing the need for human intelligence or intervention. A classic example being a self-driving car, which currently exists, of course. And they learn. It's not perfect, but as this definition describes, they do learn. In 2024, most AI researchers, practitioners, and most AI-related headlines are focused on breakthroughs in generative AI or GenAI, a technology that can create original text, images, video, and other content. To fully understand generative AI, it's important to first understand the technologies on which generative AI tools are built, machine learning and deep learning. And that's the big introduction section to the definition of AI from IBM, which is, as I'm sure some of you know, a major technology company. So, what was that?
And yeah, it goes back to the 40s too.
Yes.
She, game making and all of the ideas to make machines faster and
It's
pumping out code.
And it's been, as we'll see in a second, and maybe even on the next slide, it's been part of our collective consciousness. What people have been thinking about is how to create something that reflects who we are and what we do. And that comes up in culture as well as in technology. So, oh yes, it is the next slide. So where have we seen AI in popular culture? Have any of you seen any of these movies? All of this. We have a couple super viewers in the room here. Have any of you not seen any of them? All right. Online, feel free to keep chatting. I'm staring at that chat box. Any movies, especially newer ones, that could be on this list that I should add?
The sequel to Space Odyssey,
The sequel to Space. I didn't know there was a sequel.
2010.
2010. Is it good?
If you
Oh,
watch,
you should definitely
watch
see
the first one, it doesn't make sense until you watch the second one.
Ah, well, interesting. Anybody else have examples? Dune, okay. There will be a third and final
Dune
part,
actually
the new
outlawed
ones.
AI.
What's that?
Dune actually outlawed AI when you read the books.
Yeah, so, but it's still part of the narrative, right? I see folks typing online. Any other movies or shows? Yeah. What is it? Big Hero 6. That one has like a intelligent robot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like
Online, iRobot. There's a show on Amazon that has like 3 seasons about like afterlife where you're all in your avatars. What was that show called?
Well, there was aliens made into Alien Earth, the
Yeah.
series.
Alien Earth.
They did that with that. It was more putting people in the robots actually.
Right. I think a lot of the Alien movies touch on some of that. Yeah. What is it?
What happened on Monday?
What happened to Monday? That has AI in it?
Yeah, they can sense if they're registered children. If you haven't seen it, you gotta see it. What happened on Monday?
Blade Runner as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Blade Runner.
Blade Runner, and I see online companion. Blade Runner. Okay, well, I'm gonna need another PowerPoint file for all these examples.
Ex Machina.
I think that's already on there, no?
Oh, yeah.
And then someone else threw in Prometheus, which is adjacent to the Alien movies, same
Yeah.
world. All right,
And Star Wars.
Blade Runner is too technically.
Star Wars.
Star Wars. Okay, that'll be the last one because we gotta move on. We can keep going all day, I think. We think we can find where AI shows up all over the place. But you know, film is huge, shows huge, also books, right? Books arguably going back before any of these movies existed, early sci-fi, and then also all up into today, right? Like we have a lot of science fiction and I would argue most sci-fi that still has computer technology in it, because of course there's dystopian sci-fi where that doesn't exist. But most that do have some kind of layer that has to do with either some intelligent computer or a computer system or a starship that has an AI built into it. But these are some really great titles if you've never seen them. Have any of you read these? Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So iRobot's also, it's a movie, but it's also a book. Snow Crash, Nero by Neil Stevenson, local Washingtonian. Neuromancer by William Gibson, who is like considered the guy of cyberpunk. Of course, he's written about a lot more now. Since then, he has a gazillion books. And Douglas Adams, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which has the Babelfish, which is the thing you put in your head. And they actually make these now. They like have this technology now where you can just auto translate anything that it is hearing. So you don't need, I'm not saying this personally, but the technology says you don't need to learn the other language because it will translate it for you. So you can travel the universe and meet anybody and be able to talk to them. Nothing online. Let's talk about GenAI, because that's really why we're here. AI has been in the consciousness, as I described, in a lot of different ways. It's part of our systems, it's part of our surveillance networks, it's part of our maps, it's part of a lot of our databases and our different computer systems that are global. But how does this technology filter down and connect to us as individuals? Well, the very accessible GenAI platforms, the examples that we saw during those activities. These are smaller versions of AI that still lean into those principles we saw from IBM. So, as you mentioned earlier, GenAI or generative artificial intelligence, the key thing to know is that it runs on LLMs. That is an acronym that stands for large language models. And these large language models utilize machine learning and pattern recognition technology to essentially understand, quote unquote, understand, that's a messy word, but understand how language works. And language being a system of patterns in words and word arrangements and relationships. And by having very large data sets, billions and billions of pieces of data, it can essentially understand language. And if it understands language, it can map out the concepts within language. And that's the basis for how these tools work. So, but let's go slow here because I don't want to overwhelm folks. And you can YouTube and Google, look up all the information you want on the technology. But we often see the LLM name in the tool itself. So ChatGPT isn't just some random gobbledygook. GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, which is their large language model. Now they have, OpenAI, the company that makes ChatGPT, has multiple models. That's the new thing. They have a lot of different models for doing different types of things. Faster models that don't use as much energy, and deep learning models or learning models that are slower and use more energy, and maybe it costs more to use them. But at its core, they all have names. Yeah, we'll go a little bit into agentic in a little bit. But yes, so just like other technologies of the past, like search engines, which have names, DuckDuckGo, Yahoo, Bing, Google, they have names, they're all products, so are the GenAI tools. As I mentioned briefly, LLMs are trained on large sets of data. Much of the data is collected semi-automatically, similar to how search engines will scrape the internet. They'll send their robots to index the internet, and that way you can search for a dog groomer and find the dog groomer's website. LLMs also have collected a lot of data and trained themselves on it. That's how they, again, are looking for those patterns and finding those patterns by having access to large sets of data. Now, just to use a couple examples, you can actually download some LLMs to your computer and run them. You don't need to go to chatgpt.com. And you can get some LLMs that are 10, 15 gigabytes. Now, those are not very large compared to ChatGPT and those that have access to the live net. But that's kind of the scale that we're looking at on the lower. Yes.
Actually, there's Google and Apple teamed up to do Google AI Gallery. And
Okay.
you can run a 3 billion parameter model on your phone.
Wow.
So 3.2 gigs is the size.
There you
Like,
go.
if you're just looking for like some basic answers, basic text,
Yeah.
I could provide an example after.
And so that one was called, I'm going to write it on the board here. Apple Gallery.
It's the Google Gallery, Google AI Gallery. And it's teamed up with the iPhone.
So Google AI Gallery, and then also another one.
And When models, basically,
Okay.
and it's about between 3 billion to 4 billion parameter model, and
Nice.
it codes as well. So,
Cool.
yeah.
So there's also GPT for all, which is open source. So many of these LLMs either are or started as open source models. You can download this onto your machine, and then it also has access to dozens of LLMs that you can just download. You don't need to be a coder to do it either. So data in GenAI, when we talk about the billions of data in the data sets, we're talking about many different types of data, including books, ebooks, articles, just the random articles on the news websites, blogs, etc. We're talking about social media posts, If you don't have privacy settings turned on your Facebook account, chances are your text information is part of Meta's LLM. And even if you do have privacy turned on, it's probably been taken anyway. Transcripts and more. Transcripts meaning like video transcripts, podcast transcripts, and so on. Where is GenAI? So we're talking about this. Now, I think a lot of you already know how to access it. But if you want to access GenAI, we're seeing it show up everywhere. We're seeing it show up in web browsers. We're seeing these tools as their own mobile apps. We're seeing the offline options. They don't even require an internet connection. We're seeing standalone tools and embeds. So how many of you use Windows? I see most hands up and all the hands up in the room. So if you have not intentionally stopped yourself from upgrading to Windows 11, then you have Copilot on your computer. Copilot being Windows GenAI platform, and it's everywhere, right? It's impossible to turn off. They've even rebranded Office into Copilot. So there's that. There's Android. Android, of course, being Google, being Gemini, and then even more smaller companies like Adobe, which is a design company. Canva, they have AI tools as part of their software.
Even Canvas.
Even Canvas. Yep, Canvas, though we have not rolled it out quite yet here because of various internal policies or lack thereof. We also see GenAI in the open source world, meaning people can download if there's techie, they can run it themselves, or there are tools that are open source that are free, that are designed for everybody. And then, of course, proprietary. So tools like ChatGPT that require you to create an account, that's still proprietary, even though it's not, and you're not paying them money because you're paying them your data.
Yeah.
But also there are tools that cost cash, right? They cost a monthly subscription fee, and that's part of their revenue model.
Also what's called token cost. Too.
Yes.
Like what you generate.
Yep.
Has cost, even upon the company, whether it be in data storage. So the downstream effects of is still felt, whether we see the cost or not.
Yeah, that's actually a good, like thinking about it both monetarily and in terms of the resource is really important. Did you have a thought?
Yeah, I'm using Gemini Pro.
Yep.
And premium on that, because my brother paid for it, and I noticed a big difference between that and just using Gemini without making it pro.
Yeah, and so that's part of the whole deal, right? Like you have tools that offer premium, just like literally everything else in capitalism, premium levels of functionality. So if you pay for the fancy thing, you get more than you would if you're just signing up for the quote unquote free account. And now we're seeing, and this is higher ed context, so we're seeing student and teacher trials where you get a year free if you have a student email.
It's free for us since we get it.
And if you're part of an institution, yes, you're getting access as part of your institution. And if you work for a business, you probably have access to certain tools the same way you would have access to certain tools like Office or Adobe or any other type of technology. It's the same kind of thing. Yes. Yep. Perplexity was as well.
Student emails so powerful.
But keep in mind, and we do have a lot more to cover, so I have to move off this slide. And I do appreciate your engagement. Is that they are inviting you in, right? They're inviting you to participate. They're inviting you to see, to get a taste of what that premium experience is because you're a student, get used to it. And then suddenly you don't have a veterinarian or a doctor or a car mechanic because you're so used to just doing it all yourself. And then after that year, trial's done. Gotta get that cash. Where is GenAI? We're seeing it in the text world, audio world, image world, video world. It's impacting modalities and formats all across the board. It's definitely impacting other things that I'm not going to go into here, but maybe related to a future job, like spreadsheet analysis and creation, data analysis and manipulation. Here's a few tools. We saw, I think, all but one of these on that opening activity. The one that I'm not going to, or the one that I am going to talk about is DeepSeek. All of these other four are based in the US, but DeepSeek is a Chinese open source tool. And it has its own LLM. And yeah, you can get it as an app on your phone or use it in your browser. But I like to mention that one just to offset the Western dominance with the technology. So these tools, I think most of you probably have used these tools a little bit, but just so you know, when you're using the tool, you are writing a prompt. And these tools are, the interfaces are kind of like search engines where they often require input. And the prompt is the word, the vocabulary term for what gets entered into that bar. It's often a bar in the tools, similar to when you enter a search into a search engine. And these prompts are iterative and conversational for most tools. Some are not. It's kind of a one and done, especially the early image generating tools. But most of the fanciness or the magic of these tools is that you can go back and forth in a conversation and really nail down getting the information that you're looking for by having iterative, more than one input in the same space. And that can be done in a single conversation, or maybe you're working on a project and it takes you weeks, like you're writing a paper and you're constantly like looking to bounce ideas or get feedback or get proofreading or whatever. Having it contained in a single conversation is one of the things that these tools like to showcase. We have a couple buzzwords: prompt engineering and AI literacy. Prompt engineering being somebody might expect you to know how to use the tool in a certain context. So you get a job or you get a job interview and they're like, what do you know about GenAI? And then you can talk about, if you want, the types of prompts you've done, how you know how to create effective prompts, and that sort of thing. We have seen this literally in job descriptions. People have asked for prompt engineering. But it is a buzzword in that who knows how long it's going to be popular. Yeah. But knowing that that is also part of AI literacy, which is just this general idea that we know what AI is. We have thoughts, we can critically think about it, we have experience using it, and that also could be a trend or buzzword, in that we don't know where AI is necessarily going, what it's going to become. We know there's a lot of back and forth. Some people love it, some people hate it. Society, by way of capitalism, seems to be embracing it. And so this is a question more than a bullet point statement, is what is prompt engineering and AI literacy? Any thoughts on that one?
Well, adoption, like in some cases, like not everyone needs access to all of these tools. While it's good to have knowledge in general, like I was explaining, because I'm in tech and tech degree here, and I'm like, the consumers of AI only know like a 0.1% capability of this.
Yeah.
Ability, and trying to explain to a layman how like things fall in and out daily of what's in, what's not.
Yep.
Models are being pumped out faster than ever. I mean, now like 5.5 is 5.4 is 2 months. Like, so
Yeah.
there's models that like I see exponential jump in lead and capability, and I just don't think 99% of the population will ever understand that
Right.
level.
You're here right now, you have, at least in this 50-minute presentation, the opportunity to think a little bit more than you might normally do as you go about your daily life. And that's why we do these. So this was mentioned earlier, agentic AI and automation. Agentic AI, agent, a role, a being that is doing multiple things, that is operating semi-autonomously. Basically, you can create, using prompting, you can create a bot to do complex work for you, okay? That is a very basic way of describing what agentic AI is. And agentic AI looks different in different contexts. But I love to use this example because it's accessible to all of us, right? You could create an agentic AI to design your vacation to South Florida. And it would be able to pull the hotel information, the recommended flights and airports, the best food, the hot spots to go visit, like the tourist spots, if you like dancing, the best places to go to the club, all of these things. And it could spend an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, depending on which tool you're using. And then it would compile all of them, as well as, depending on what you give it access to, buy the flights, buy the hotels, get you reservations at those restaurants, get you the tickets for those dance events, and it would put it all into a single space for you, okay? That is the level, multiple things at one time over a longer period of time. And then you take that a step further and you say, I want to create a business that does this for everybody. And then you suddenly have an agent that can replace the travel agent and can just do it whenever somebody clicks onto your website and pays whatever they need to pay. So that's kind of the automation that we're seeing, and it's rapidly growing. This is one of the largest areas of growth for GenAI.
Anything topic is outpacing an AI and valuation ability.
So that's agentic AI. I'm just going to show real quick, just so we have an example in the presentation. This is Perplexity. I mentioned Perplexity is something that was giving discounts to students and educators. I like to recommend Perplexity for students that are doing work in higher ed because it is similar to a search engine. It is actively looking almost 99% of the time, unless you ask it for something that doesn't require an internet search. It's actively looking for information on the web. And it provides the sources for from which it gets its information. So check it out if you want. But let's say, what's the best? I like dancing. So what's the best new nightclub in Miami? So here's the example I'm going to be doing. Remember, it's using its data set for language, large language model, LLM, and then it's also finding information on the web. That's where Perplexity, that's like its whole deal. It's using information from the web. And so then it provides me with its output. And it says there's the best pick, Salva, and then strong alternatives, mode downtown. I'm assuming that's just pronounced 11 or E11 even. And then it provides 17 sources. So it has a search engine-like list of sources that I can explore. And you can see that it's everything from Time Out, which is, a publication, to TripAdvisor, to YouTube, and even social media. We have Reddit, a Reddit thread there. And then it is iterative, as I mentioned. If I wanted to ask a follow-up, what about all ages? And I can do that. I don't have any kids, but let's say I wanted to go to the club with my kids. I could do that. And it will give me some information. It says it's usually 18 plus. But yeah, I mean, hey, you can't go to the club, but you can go have some nice fun games and a late night social vibe. So it works with you a little bit in that sense. Have more slides to cover. Does anyone have any thoughts on Perplexity and how we've seen it work? All right.
Is it funny how all the different LLMs, have the same kind of UI as of late too, like?
Yeah. This is basically Claude. Yeah, I actually did ask Perplexity if there was some secret like agreement between the UI, and it wasn't able to give me an answer. It was like,
Well, I think what's happening is they're using AI to build AI products, so I think that there's like a general, like,
yeah,
commonality of what works and what doesn't.
for sure. Okay, in the next 10-ish minutes, we're going to talk about ethics. Really want to get through all of these. So what is ethics? Briefly, and you can take an entire course here at the college to learn about the history of ethics in our philosophy department. But we're talking about a code or social contract and what is good and what is bad, what is right and what is wrong. So that's where we start with ethics. What's good? What's right? Bad? What's right? What's wrong in society? As well as personally, to me, to you, we all are individuals. We're all independent people, right? We all come up with this stuff individually. But we also live with other people. We live in society. We're not hermits out in the woods, right? So we have a lot of other layers, other contexts through which ethics shows up. We have this very room, and you all are lovely and respectful people, and I love that. We have the college and the norms at the college. We live in Spokane, which is a city that has certain values. It has certain populations, certain histories. We live in the inland Northwest, and you go on further and further and further. You might have ethics as part of various social groups, right? You might have a club. You might be part of an organization or a church. You might have certain values within your family. All of that is overlapping and integrating with itself. And at the end of it all is you, right? So why do I mention ethics? Because GenAI has a lot of issues. It's not a utopia. It is not this perfect thing, this Shangri-La that has no problems. It is actually fraught with issues. And we as individuals, in our many different contexts that I was just describing, have to figure out how we connect with GenAI. So this is going back to that learning outcome and thinking about what the issues are and how do we feel about them. So I'm going to go through a few. And this is, we actually have a recording of a special topic where I dive deeply into more than just here. But this is the brief overview. One of the general ethical issues is citation and intellectual theft. When I mentioned that these tools semi-automatically, the LLM semi-automatically have been utilizing data that has been found online and in other spaces, a lot of it has been taken from different places and sometimes without consent. So for example, artistic works or novels, and the creators of those objects did not consent for the work to be shared with these tech companies. Citation. How do we as individuals cite what is essentially a giant synthesis of information from anywhere in the ether of humanity? So that's a big issue. Another one, access issues. We mentioned multiple times that these tools are not free. Many of them are not free, and even if they say they're free, they're taking your data. So it's an access issue, is an equity issue. Some people don't want to give their lives to the tools, or they can't afford to do it because they don't have the $20 a month fee, or they don't have a free account because they're not a student, right? And you can also see that, there's internet access requirement for most of these. You need some kind of expensive device to use them, etc. Here's a really, really large one that a lot of people are highlighting: environmental impact. So these tools use a lot of energy, electricity, and then the stations that generate the electricity, and the large data centers that have very large computer systems. They're using water to cool things, right? And so how do we reconcile how much natural resources are being used for this technology? Also, another one people often don't think about is you put a data center on open land. What is the impact to that open land? Often we're seeing previously preserved and protected spaces being identified as fantastic places to have a large building with a gazillion computers. Yes.
Go far. And then they're finding out. I just include all my neighbors.
Yes. Great example. Farmland for folks online that didn't hear that. Previously farmland. Impacts on learning. So this is obviously a big one for us because we are all students in this room. So if information and content is more automated, how do we learn? There's a lot of research that's coming out about this. Literacy rates are low already because of the internet and because of video and all the short form content that exists. So now we have these walls of text that are disrupting cognition, disrupting how our brain works. So how do we learn when these tools are part of our everyday life, especially if we're just trying to use Google and we get the wall of text and the AI summary before everything else? And then connected to multiple other issues we've talked about is just the fact that there's that forced imposition, that over-reliance, the fact that we are consumed by it, and as a result, we have to kind of dig our way out. And how does that have consequences? If we take away the GenAI, can we still survive? Can I, like, oh, Google Maps goes away. Can I still drive my car to the Rosars? Or GenAI goes away. Can I still know how to interact with the world? And you get like these funny videos on Instagram of people being like, I just cut my finger off. What do I do? And it's waiting for ChatGPT to respond. And it's like, I'm so sorry you're going through this. You should probably call 911. Did you have something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's also the idea that we're, that not only is it preventing some learning, it's also, the idea that if we continue to use these tools, future generations are not going to be able to learn the same way we did, and there will be a lost art of learning.
Yeah.
In a particular way that previous generations had. So,
yeah, 2 years ago, I heard a presentation from a second grade teacher who was teaching her students how to use Copilot in second grade. Now they would be in fourth grade. Soon they're going to be in this room or in this library. And they started learning without really the independence to choose for themselves. So yes, that is really a great layer of points. Real quick, I know we're almost at time here. Safeguards and oversight. So who chooses what is possible versus what is off limits with these tools? If I'm researching, let's say I'm researching a history of structured state violence in various countries historically, right? Depending on what tool and what country I ask about, it might say I can't answer that question. Let's say I'm doing a research project on sexuality in the Pacific Northwest and what that is all about and the diversity of sexualities. It might say, oh, I can't do that. Someone or some people, or even itself, its own systemic code is determining what is off limits and what is not off limits. As librarians, as people that defend the First Amendment and academic freedom, we want everything to be accessible. Every topic should be something that people can research. But there are specific topics that you can't ask about. If you try asking DeepSeek, a Chinese product about Tiananmen Square massacre, it will say, I can't talk about it. If you ask ChatGPT about talking about Palestine and Israel, there's evidence that it won't talk about that conflict. So, big issue there. And then a huge one, systemic biases in human knowledge. Every individual is biased in some way. Bias isn't necessarily bad, but it's the truth that we're all individually biased. We have our preferences. And as a result, systemically over time, human knowledge is biased in different ways for different groups, preferencing certain things. So that ends up showing up in a variety of ways. That means that dominant cultures will be more dominant. Dominant topics will be more dominant. There will be a limitation on certain things as a result. Different isms and different structural and systemic biases will show up. There's a lot of research being done on racism, sexism, and other isms showing up in GenAI. And then there might also be issues of violations of copyright law. Here's a few other examples, and I know we're right at time here, so I want to get to the recommended slide here. So, can GenAI be helpful in higher education? Maybe. You might find that these tools offer you something for your learning that you can't get elsewhere, such as a familiarity or friendly voice. You can role play or define roles within the chat as you're going through your work. Some folks who have certain learning styles or are managing their disabilities may be able to get help through these tools. You might be able to get more precise answers through your conversations with these tools. And for many, and this is the designer aspect of these tools, they're designed to be easily used. Anyone can just start chatting. That's how they've designed them to be. And so for many people, this technology might be relatively stress-free. But those benefits might not be for you. They might not show up. That is the ideal, but they may fall short. We don't have time for the second activity, sorry. I created this fun slide here. Ethics is messy. Real quick, and then we'll end it for today. So I want you to walk away with a few things here. If you are in a class and you're thinking about your relationship to GenAI, maybe your instructor has brought it up, maybe they haven't. The first thing I want you to think about is, have they mentioned it in your syllabus or assignment language? And if you are not sure, talk with your instructor on what is permitted and what is not permitted. Be aware that, just like I mentioned with ethics, we all come from different places when we're talking about this technology. So different people have different opinions. I am connected with several professors that hate GenAI. They loathe it. They are in the camp that thinks it's the end of the world. And then there are people that love it and have it as a requirement. Yeah, it's a requirement.
He's only been 2 years ago, I would never even advocate for these tools. Now it's necessary if you want to code to the level that you are expected to.
Yep.
Everyone in the industry is forced to use it or expected to use it. So
Yep.
I will expect you to use it. Flip is like, okay, like most of us are like, well, we've been using these tools already in the sense that we build personal projects, we use agentic AI, we know how we're probably further ahead than some of these professors who are now advocating. So
Yeah. The differing opinions can be different over time too. Always be transparent, even if your professor allows it or doesn't allow it or is somewhere in the middle. if you use it already, or if you want to use it, the technology, state it, talk, be direct about it. Meanwhile, personally, think about how you use it. Think about how you might over rely on it, or how it might be disrupting your learning, or it might be a new way of offering opportunity for critical thinking. And stay up to date on news and trends of GenAI in the workforce and the world. Here are a few things for how it may impact your job. You will see GenAI integrated with those tools, as we mentioned. That may impact how you or your team creates and goes through different workflows. You may be asked to generate documents or templates. You may be asked to use templates that are part of GenAI. Emails and meeting agendas may be automated. We have email minutes automated in Teams and Zoom now. You may be given the opportunity to translate, and these tools do that. And then there may be more room for growth within your role in the context of computer programming and other tech skills, because it's becoming more accessible. Those skills are becoming more accessible with GenAI. So thank you so much, everyone. Any last questions before we head out for today?
The idea of like, there are certain notes where you should be like upgrade of it, like the capabilities, and I think that like while everything is moving so fast, there are certain things that you should be looking out for. And okay, kind of when you install them to watch your dependencies and watch your package installer, because they can become compromised to just. Yeah.
Great. So this recording will be added to our LibGuide. We'll also send up a follow-up survey for those of you that arrived after I started. We'll have the same presentation tomorrow. We might make it to the second activity. We'll see. And then we have 2 additional special topics. These are new ones. Librarians at SCC, including Toby Good, are going to be running these. So fun or foe. The first one will be the sandbox, and the second one will be the showdown. So these have light gamified activities involved. They're going to be really cool. So show up for those if you can. And yes,
Same one.
What's that?
Tomorrow's just the same.
Tomorrow's the same one. Yep. So yes. Oh yeah. Here are some other resources. I forgot I added this. So yes, you can find more trainings and resources on our LibGuide. SEC Continuing Education offers $60 classes on various GenAI topics. You're welcome to chat with me about it, and we will have more workshops in the fall. And all right. Thank you, everybody.
Brandon, the software. I'm in the cloud. I'm in cloud DevOps. I'm in the